The stars twinkled in the cold silence of space. The Galactic Council, the powerful ruling body of the galaxy, believed they had finally cornered humanity. Earth had grown too bold, too ambitious in their expansion. They had colonized a few planets outside their own solar system, and now the Council was ready to put an end to it. They sent an ultimatum demanding Earth's immediate surrender and the dismantling of their growing fleet. The message was clear: stop your expansion or face the consequences. But what the Council didn't know was that Earth had been preparing for this very moment for years. The humans had secretly built a fleet of their own, one far more powerful than anything the Galactic Council could imagine. The Terran fleet, as it was called, was a force of advanced technology, deep space exploration, and military precision. It wasn't just a fleet, it was a symbol of human resilience, a message that they would not be pushed around, not anymore. The Galactic Council underestimated humanity, and that mistake was about to cost them everything. As the Council's message echoed through the galaxy, Earth's response was swift. Within days, the Terran fleet was launched. It wasn't just a handful of ships, it was an armada. Massive warships, sleek stealth cruisers, and powerful fighters took off from Earth's orbit, each one carrying the latest in human technology. Their mission was simple: they would strike back, and they would strike hard. For years, the humans had kept their plans hidden from the Council. They had built secret shipyards on distant moons, using resources from asteroid belts and mining colonies. They had forged alliances with alien species that the Council had long dismissed as insignificant. And they had discovered something even more valuable: a long-lost alien technology that could shift the balance of power. As the Terran fleet approached the border of Council space, tensions were high. The Council had already mobilized its forces, sending massive fleets to intercept the humans before they could reach the heart of the galaxy. The battle for control had begun. But there was one thing the Council didn't expect. Earth had a secret weapon, something that would change the course of the war. On board the flagship of the Terran fleet, Admiral Grace Collins stood in front of a massive holographic map of the galaxy. The fleet was moving fast, cutting through the darkness of space toward Council territory. Collins, a seasoned military leader, stared at the map, her mind racing. She had never expected this mission to be easy, but she knew what was at stake. The fate of humanity rested on their success. "Admiral," said Commander Rios, a member of her trusted crew, "we're entering Council space. The first fleet of Council ships is on the horizon." Collins nodded, her face grim. "Prepare the fleet for battle. We won't stop until we reach their core." The Terran fleet was powerful, but it was still a risk. They had to fight through waves of Council warships, battle their way past heavily fortified stations, and destroy everything in their path. But what they didn't know was that Earth's secret weapon was already in place, hidden deep within the core of the flagship. The weapon was an ancient alien device discovered years ago by Earth's top scientists. It was an energy weapon so powerful that it could disable entire fleets in an instant. However, the device had never been fully tested. No one knew if it would even work. The risk was enormous. If it failed, the Terran fleet would be at the mercy of the Council's overwhelming firepower. But if it succeeded, it would give the humans a fighting chance to take the battle straight to the heart of the Galactic Council. As the first battle began, the Terran fleet clashed with the Council ships. The sound of explosions echoed through the void of space as the two forces collided. The humans fought with determination. Yet, despite their fierce resistance, the Council's superior numbers began to take their toll. The humans had to fight for every inch of ground. Admiral Collins watched as her ships fought valiantly, but the odds seemed impossible. "Activate the weapon," she ordered, her voice steady but filled with urgency. She had no other choice. It was time to take the risk. A low hum filled the flagship as the energy device powered up. The weapon, which had been dormant for years, suddenly came to life. A brilliant beam of light shot out from the ship's core, cutting through the dark expanse of space like a knife through butter. The beam struck the first Council ship, and within seconds, it was disabled, its shields and weapon systems completely fried. The Council fleet's advance came to a halt. Their ships, once confident and unstoppable, were now vulnerable. The Terran fleet pushed forward, taking full advantage of the sudden change in momentum. But the battle wasn't over yet. The Council's high command had one final weapon left to deploy, their flagship, the Titan, a massive warship that dwarfed any other vessel in space. The Titan was the last line of defense. It was heavily armored, equipped with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. If the humans could take it down, the Council's entire fleet would collapse. But if the Titan survived, the Terran fleet would be destroyed. The Titan loomed ahead, a massive black shape in the distance. Collins felt her heart race. This would be the ultimate test of their strength. All ships, focus fire on the Titan, she commanded. Every ship in the fleet turned its guns toward the massive warship. The final battle had begun. The next few moments felt like a blur. Explosions filled the sky as the Terran fleet launched everything they had at the Titan. But the Titan's defenses were strong. For every blast the humans landed, the Titan retaliated with devastating firepower. Just as all hope seemed lost, a second pulse from the energy weapon was fired. This time, it hit the Titan directly, breaking through its shields and causing massive damage to its engines. The Titan faltered, and in that moment, the Terran fleet struck with everything they had. One final coordinated attack, and the Titan exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The battle was over. The Terran fleet had won. But the war was just beginning. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity, and now they would face the consequences of their mistake. The Terran fleet had struck back, and Earth's power had awakened in full force. As the fleet prepared to move deeper into Council territory, Admiral Collins couldn't help but smile. They had won the first battle, but there was still much more to be done. This was just the beginning of humanity's fight for freedom. And the Galactic Council would never see it coming. The Galactic Council had been waiting for this moment for years. Humanity, once considered insignificant, had grown bolder. They had begun expanding beyond Earth's solar system, colonizing new worlds, and building a fleet strong enough to challenge the might of the Council itself. The leaders of the Galactic Council, an organization that controlled the galaxy with an iron fist, had seen enough. They decided to put an end to Earth's ambitions with a simple, harsh ultimatum: cease all expansion or face the consequences. But what the Council didn't know was that they were dealing with a force far more dangerous than they had anticipated. Earth wasn't going to back down. The people of Earth had prepared in secret. They had built their Terran fleet, and the moment had come for them to strike back. The Council had expected to hear nothing more than a surrender from Earth. Instead, within days, the Terran fleet had been launched, a force of over 100 advanced warships ready to defy the Council's command. But among the ranks of this fleet was something the Council never saw coming: someone from within their own ranks who had secretly turned against them. Captain Zane Holt, once one of the most trusted officers in the Council's elite forces, had been hiding his true allegiance for years. He had been placed deep within the Council's inner circle, his loyalty and reputation beyond reproach. To the Council, Zane was a valued strategist, someone whose knowledge of the human mind and military tactics was unmatched. What they didn't know was that Zane had grown disillusioned with the Council's oppressive rule. He had witnessed firsthand their cruelty and disregard for life in the galaxy. Slowly, his loyalties had shifted from the Council to Earth, and he made a decision that would change everything. Zane had been feeding information to the humans for months, passing along secrets, weaknesses, and plans that the Council thought were secure. He knew how they thought, what they feared, and what their next moves would be. He had given Earth the upper hand, but he hadn't expected the risk that came with it. If his betrayal was discovered, his life would be forfeit, and the consequences would be deadly for everyone involved. The Terran fleet moved quickly, gathering strength and striking out at the edges of Council space. As they made their way closer to the heart of the galaxy, Zane's heart began to race. He had sent them the plans for the Council's defenses, but the reality of the battle was coming closer. The human ships were powerful, but the Council's forces were numerous and well-equipped. They would be ready, and they would not be forgiving. Zane stood on the bridge of the flagship, the horizon, his eyes fixed on the viewscreen. The stars stretched out ahead, and he could see the first signs of the Council's fleet approaching. There was no turning back now. He had crossed the line, and the consequences of his actions were now a reality. Captain Holt, Commander Lane, his second-in-command, said, his voice filled with uncertainty, "We're approaching the first battle. The Council ships are on the horizon. Are you sure about this? Are you sure we can win?" Zane didn't answer immediately. His mind raced as he thought about his family, his old comrades in the Council, and the life he had left behind. He had been given a choice: stay loyal to the Council or fight for the freedom of billions of innocent lives. He knew what he had to do. "We've come too far to turn back," Zane said, his voice steady but filled with a quiet intensity. "Trust me, we have what we need. The Council won't know what hit them." The battle began shortly after. The Terran fleet clashed with the Council's forces near a forgotten moon, a place Zane had once used as a training ground during his time in the Council's army. The first volley of shots rang out, lighting up the cold, empty space. The battle was fierce, with the Council ships trying to counter the surprise strike. They had no idea that someone on the inside had betrayed them, giving Earth the advantage. But then, just as the tide seemed to turn in favor of the Terran fleet, something unexpected happened. A massive Council warship appeared in the distance, moving faster than anything Zane had ever seen. It was the Eclipse, the most powerful ship in the Council's fleet, and it was bearing down on the horizon. The Council had one final card to play, and Zane knew it. The Eclipse was armed with a superweapon capable of disabling any ship in the fleet, including his own. As the Eclipse closed in, Zane's heart pounded in his chest. He had given the humans everything they needed, but would it be enough? "Get us out of here!" Zane shouted, his voice filled with urgency. But before the ship could react, the Eclipse fired a devastating pulse of energy. The horizon rocked violently, throwing everyone to the ground. The crew scrambled to regain control, but it was too late. The Eclipse was closing in for the kill. Suddenly, an unexpected voice came over the comms. It was the Council, but this time, it wasn't a threat. "Captain Holt," the voice said, "you've betrayed us, and you've led these humans to victory. But now you must face the consequences." Zane's blood ran cold. He knew that voice. It was the voice of his old friend, General Varn, someone he had once trusted. The Council had known about his betrayal all along. He had been a pawn in a larger game, and now the real war was beginning. The Eclipse was not the Council's only weapon. They had prepared a trap for Zane, one he had never seen coming. His loyalty to Earth had cost him more than he realized. As the horizon struggled to stay afloat, Zane made a choice. The fight wasn't over yet, but now it wasn't just about defeating the Council, it was about surviving the consequences of his actions. With his ship damaged and the enemy closing in, Zane looked out into the vastness of space, his thoughts consumed by one question: was this truly the end, or had his betrayal set the stage for an even greater war? The tension was thick. The outcome was uncertain, and Zane's true loyalty was still in question. As the battle raged on, one thing was clear: this was only the beginning. The stars shone bright across the galaxy, casting their cold light over a vast and silent space. The Galactic Council had always believed that they controlled everything: peace, order, and power. But Earth, a once weak planet, had become a threat that no one had seen coming. Humans, united and determined, had risen up, building a powerful fleet of ships known as the Terran fleet. Earth had defied the ultimatum sent by the Council, and now the fate of the galaxy was hanging in the balance. The Terran fleet was strong, but the Council's forces were vast. The battle for control was underway, and while the humans fought with fierce determination, they knew they couldn't win with sheer strength alone. They needed something more, something that could tip the scales in their favor. What the Council didn't know, however, was that the humans possessed a secret weapon. Hidden deep within Earth's core, a long-forgotten power had been waiting. It was an ancient force, left behind by a mysterious alien race that Galactic Council had ever seen. And now, for the first time in centuries, it was awakening. Captain Maya Williams stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, the flagship of the Terran fleet. Her eyes were fixed on the holographic display of the galaxy. The Council's fleet was closing in fast. She knew they had no time to waste. Their only hope was to use the ancient power, but they had no idea if it would work. No one had ever seen it in action before. It was their last chance. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Marco, his voice tense. "We're almost in position. Should we prepare to engage the Council fleet?" Maya hesitated. The battle was unavoidable. Yet, her mind kept racing back to the one thing that could turn everything around: the ancient power. The device, hidden beneath layers of Earth's crust, was said to be capable of disrupting even the most advanced technology in the galaxy. But it was a risk. They had no idea what might happen when they activated it. "We'll engage the Council," Maya said, her voice calm but filled with an underlying urgency. "But keep the ship at a safe distance. If this doesn't work, we need to make sure we can escape." Deep inside the Odyssey, the crew worked quickly, preparing the ancient technology for activation. A strange, otherworldly energy hummed in the background, as if the ship itself knew something was about to change. The power was real, and now it was up to Maya and her crew to unleash it. As the Terran fleet moved closer to the Council's forces, the tension in the air was palpable. The first few shots rang out as the battle began, with the two fleets clashing in the cold vacuum of space. The humans fought valiantly, their ships agile and precise, but the Council's massive warships were overwhelming. One by one, the Terran fleet's ships were taking damage. "Admiral," shouted Lieutenant Marco, his face pale. "The Council's ships are too powerful. We need that weapon now." Maya nodded grimly. She had been prepared for this moment, but now it was here, and she had to make a choice. Was the ancient weapon really what they needed? Could it be the game changer they had hoped for? Or would it backfire, leaving them helpless in the face of the Council's might? "Activate the power," Maya ordered, her voice steady but filled with resolve. "Let's hope we're not making a mistake." The ship's systems hummed louder, and a strange vibration filled the Odyssey. The energy from the ancient device began to surge, and for a moment everything seemed to freeze. The Council fleet, which had been advancing relentlessly, suddenly stopped in their tracks. Their ships, massive, imposing, seemed to flicker, their systems glitching as if they were malfunctioning. At first, no one could believe it. Then, one by one, the Council ships began to shake and shudder. Their shields flickered, and their weapon systems went offline. The Terran fleet had a real chance to win. The ancient power was doing what they had hoped for, but it was still unpredictable. Maya's heart raced as she watched the energy readings on the screen. The Council was not about to give up easily. A massive ship, larger than anything Maya had seen before, appeared in the distance. It was the Excalibur, the Council's flagship. Equipped with the most advanced weapons, it was the last line of defense. And now, it was heading straight for the Odyssey. "Brace for impact," Maya shouted as the Excalibur opened fire. The Odyssey shook violently, but the ancient power wasn't done yet. The energy pulse from the Odyssey intensified, and with a blinding flash of light, the Excalibur's weapons system sputtered out of control. The massive warship was left floating in space, completely disabled. "We did it!" Marco cried, but Maya wasn't so sure. The battle wasn't over. The Council had more tricks up their sleeves. Even though the Excalibur was neutralized, the remaining ships were still formidable. But for the first time, the Terran fleet had the upper hand. The ancient power had turned the tide. But as Maya looked around at the chaos unfolding before her, a chilling thought crossed her mind. What had they unleashed? The device was powerful, but at what cost? The ancient energy was unpredictable, and it seemed to have a life of its own. She could feel the ship vibrating beneath her feet, and the power seemed to grow stronger by the minute. "We need to shut it down," Maya said urgently. Now, but it was too late. The device had already become unstable, and the energy it had unleashed was no longer something they could control. The ship's systems began to fail, and Maya realized with a sinking feeling that the power wasn't just destroying the Council's fleet, it was also tearing apart their own ship. "We need to get out of here," Maya ordered, her voice shaking. Now. The crew scrambled to prepare for evacuation, but the ancient force was relentless. The device was threatening to consume everything in its path. Maya's heart pounded as she watched the power surge, knowing that the fate of the entire fleet rested on whether they could escape in time. As the Odyssey systems collapsed around them, Maya couldn't help but wonder if humanity's victory had come at too great a cost. The ancient power had awakened, but now it threatened to consume them all. And in the distance, the Council's remaining ships were ready for one final push. The war was far from over. The galaxy was in turmoil. The Galactic Council, once a symbol of order and power, had found itself under siege by the Terran fleet. Humanity had risen from its humble beginnings, launching a bold counterattack against the might of the Council. With every passing day, the Terran forces gained more ground, forcing the Council to reconsider their strategy. It was clear Earth was no longer the insignificant planet they had once thought it to be. Yet, even as the humans pushed forward, the Council's last hope lay in one person, a general thought lost to history. General Marcus Vaughn, known as the Prodigal General, was the Council's greatest military strategist. Years ago, he had been the Council's most trusted officer, leading them to countless victories. But after a bitter defeat at the hands of an unknown enemy, he had disappeared without a trace. Rumors swirled that he had betrayed the Council. Others said he had gone into hiding, preparing for a return. But no one knew for sure until now. The Council had been dealt blow after blow by the Terran fleet. Ships were lost, commanders were defeated, and morale was at an all-time low. Desperate, the Council had no choice but to reach out to the one man who could save them, the very man they had once cast aside. They offered Marcus Vaughn a deal: come back to lead the Council's forces, and Earth would fall. Vaughn, now a man hardened by years of silence and self-imposed exile, stood before the Council. His once pristine uniform was worn and faded, his face bearing the marks of time and regret. He had never wanted to return to this life, but the galaxy was on the brink of chaos, and he knew that only he could turn the tide. "I know what you want from me," Vaughn said, his voice low and commanding, yet cold. "You want me to lead you to victory. But don't mistake my return for loyalty. I'm doing this because it's necessary, not because I believe in your cause." The Council's leaders exchanged uneasy glances. They knew Vaughn had no love for them. Yet, they also knew that his genius on the battlefield was unmatched. He was the Council's last chance. Within days, Vaughn's return sparked a dramatic shift. The Terran fleet, unaware of his reappearance, continued its relentless advance. But the Council had a new strategy, one that Vaughn had personally crafted. As the Terran fleet closed in on a critical system, they were met with a surprise. A massive new fleet, hundreds of warships, emerged from the shadows. The Council had been rebuilding, waiting for the right moment. And with Vaughn at the helm, they had launched their most daring counterattack yet. Captain Elara Kincaid, one of the leaders of the Terran fleet, stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, watching as the battle unfolded on the starboard screen. The Council fleet was massive, larger than anything they had expected. But what caught her attention wasn't the size of the enemy force, it was the strategy. The enemy was using tactics she had seen only once before, during the earliest battles against the Council. It was Marcus Vaughn's style. "Is that?" Alara began, narrowing her eyes as the realization hit her. "Yes," Lieutenant Roy replied, his voice filled with awe and dread. "General Vaughn. He's back." Alara's mind raced. She had heard the stories about Vaughn, the brilliant general, who had once been untouchable. If he was back, the odds were worse than they had imagined. She had always thought that his disappearance was the end of the Council's military advantage. Now, it seemed that she had been wrong. The Terran fleet was facing its toughest challenge yet. The battle raged on. Vaughn's forces moved with precision, taking advantage of every weakness in the Terran fleet's formation. Each move seemed calculated, each tactic executed flawlessly. The Terran fleet fought bravely, but it was clear that they were being outmatched. For the first time in months, the Terran forces were on the defensive, but Alara wasn't ready to give up. She had fought against the Council for too long to simply surrender. As she observed the battlefield, she began to notice something odd. Vaughn's fleet was powerful, yes, but there was something off. The way they moved, the way they responded to every move, there was a hesitation, a lack of full commitment. It was as if Vaughn was holding something back.